Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. This is Colorado Comedy Cast. Colorado Comedy Cast, Colorado Comedy Cast, Colorado Comedy Cast, Colorado Comedy Cast. That is not a tongue twister, and now you know. So basically, I started recording these in December, 4 months ago. And it turns out that wanting to have like 15 podcasts in the can and be completely prepared and be able to launch one every week and all that stuff is a really good idea if you're a professional. But if you don't have, the time and money to do that kind of thing, it gets really annoying and turns out that you quit doing everything and abandon the podcast, only to come back to it a few months later, now, and go, you know what, I should just do it. I should just put them out. So basically, here's the first podcast I recorded. I recorded it with Aaron Owens. You'll meet him. He's a delightful fellow. And I'm just going to put out podcasts whenever I darn well please. No real rhyme or reason. I'm not doing this for pay. I'm just kind of screwing around, and I hope you like it. So, without further ado, here's the first podcast. Hey, what's up, guys? This is Zach Harris with Colorado Comedy Podcast. And I've got in the studio with us, the studio being the basement, I've got with us Aaron Owens.
Hey, what's going on, man? It's 1st of December. Excited to be here.
Nice. 1st of December. We can't say dates, well, we could, but technically we'll be airing
1st of the month.
It's a day.
It's the day of Rosh Hashanah.
Yes, no one knows when that is, except our listeners in New York and other Jewish infiltrated. In fact, that's a really bad way to say. Jewish heavy areas. I'm Jewish, if that helps.
Yeah, I have a little bit of Jew. I got hairy thighs. Well, that was
and now our whole podcast, we're done. We're no longer recording a podcast.
Anti-Semitic. All right, yeah, what's going on here?
All right.
You know what? We're actually recording to a university.
Yeah.
They enjoy this kind of stuff.
Yeah, universities love this kind of stuff. Jewish universities.
You have to be specific.
Jew-U. Okay.
Well,
we've been recording for approximately 1 minute, and we've already lost 17 listeners of an estimated 15 who were going to listen. All of our families, our Jewish families.
I think that explains the reality of like a real spreading like a wildfire, because it's usually a negative thing.
Oh, yeah. I actually had a boss who said the truth can get around the world a lie can get around the world before the truth has a chance to get its pants on.
Wow.
Yeah, I think lies spread easier because the truth is more the truth is a lot more complex and a lot less bullet pointy than real world. And so a lie is just like, this guy did this thing, he's from this group, therefore hate this group.
Yeah. You don't got to tell the whole story.
Yeah, you don't have to tell the whole story. And the real world has insane amounts of nuance, which is I think why the Bible is unpopular in a lot of ways, but also I think it's real is because it has the weird complexities and stupidities of real life.
That is something interesting. Especially discussing, since we're not around. Yeah, we're around the holidays. Which holidays? You don't know.
Whichever ones we choose to.
We're around Eastermas. Eastermas.
Eastermas, yeah.
Yeah. It's my favorite time of the year, actually.
Is it?
Yeah. You get to search for, the eggs that have red cups in it from Starbucks.
That Starbucks thing was so dumb. No one... I saw 50 people post about how evil it was that they were worried about the red cups. Not a single person said a thing about how the red cups were evil. It turns out it was actually just a radio show. They were doing a parody. They were doing a joke thing, and it just got picked up by the news.
Once again, a lie.
Yeah.
Whatever, if you want to define what a lie is, it doesn't matter. But something that's not concrete. Yeah. It just spreads. Yeah. Fast.
And there's going to be people, I'm sure there were people offended by it because there are people offended by everything in the world, but not
not sizable
real people. Because there's the people who call up the complaint lines on boxes of, microwavable dinners.
There are those people. If you've ever worked in a restaurant, you go to restaurants often enough, you hear the complaints. It just happens. It's not even a real thing.
Yeah, and it's just those people have issues.
It's so funny. One of the things that people would comment is why are people so mad about the red cups? And I was like, not many people really are mad about the red cups. It's but people believe that people were mad just because two people said it. And I was like, it's not a thing. But because you're believing it, now it's a thing.
Yeah. It's silly. So anyway, welcome to Colorado Comedy Podcast, Colorado Comedy Cast, whatever we decide to call it. I'm Zach Harris, by the way. I'm the host and, person who does stuff here. And I created this comedy cast because I always wanted to do a podcast. And I've got with me the delightful, the lovely, the 6'6" Aaron Owens.
That is I. I've never been described as delightfully lovely by a man before, at least.
Yeah.
Like my mother. Maybe my sister? But I'll take it. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here. This is a wonderful studio you have down here, and have a good time.
In my basement with the futons folded out because I live with I bought a house with my little brother and his wife, and her relatives were in town, so they were every couch in our house is actually a pull-out couch or folds into a futon.
By you bought a house with your little brother, like your little brother came along with the house? Is that what
happened? Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's kind of like a big brothers, big sisters thing. They're really trying to get people into the mentoring programs. So if you buy a house now, I mean, Starbucks, they just started it. If you buy a cup of coffee, you get a kid.
You get it. Interesting.
Not like a kid, like a 13-year-old mentor.
Like a big. Oh, I gotcha. Yeah, it's a Big Brother thing.
Yeah,
but not like the reality television show Big Brother.
No, nothing like that. But this is. I mean, I bought the house, my brother.
Oh, this is a great idea to do a podcast about a false reality television show.
Yeah, actually good. I like that. So no, I actually did. So my brother has money and contracting skills, and I have no money and no contracting skills, but I had. Now I don't, but I had really good credit, like phenomenal, over 800. So I had phenomenal credit. And so basically the deal was, hey, Zach, if you pay $300 a month, we'll do all the rest and we'll flip the house. And you just do all the paperwork crap and all the
legal stuff and all
legal stuff. Yeah, just all the crap that, it took 6 months.
It is no joke getting a house, which is wild because you think, I don't know, it'd be easier, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's law. I mean, contract, so lawyers make it. The more lawyers are involved in something. So, if you buy a TV, you're not going to sue them and you're not going to be screwed out of $200,000.
Right.
If you buy a house, if everything isn't precise and exactly legal,
then a lot can go wrong. And then more people are involved. And so it's actually a good idea in the long run.
Yeah.
Okay.
And buying a house is a huge investment. You don't want. I mean, that was part of the reason why the big housing crash happened was because they were just letting anyone buy a house.
So see what it leads to. So 6 months, even though it's a long process, a lot of work.
Yeah.
You almost did that hours a week.
Yeah.
Hours upon hours a week.
Yeah, for sure.
So wild. But it's nice. It's going to be really good.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going to flip it, like you said.
Yeah, I'm going to flip. Well, I'm not going to flip it. Matt's going to flip it. Oh, I do the paperwork stuff. He does the flipping stuff. I mean, I help him out. We took up the carpet and got a hardwood, put it basically underneath our carpet. There was a hardwood floor.
Nice.
For no reason, they just put a carpet over the hardwood floor. So that was it took us 5 hours, including cleanup. And now we have a hardwood floor upstairs.
That's sweet. You'll be able to sand it, put it down.
Yeah.
Polish it.
And we're going to do that 3 months before we sell it, so it'll be super shiny.
Super shiny so the baby doesn't mess it up beforehand, huh?
Yeah. So anyway, we're talking with Aaron Owens. He has been doing stand-up for, about a year?
Coming up on a year, that's right.
Yeah, and Aaron was recently in an improv group as well called Improvisaurus with me. Yep. So Aaron is a fledgling comedian in the Colorado scene, but you're used to talking on big stages. Yeah,
very, very used to talking on big stages. I actually used to do some things with different camps, like Athletes in Christ and different things with even speaking in front of a lot of people, old people specifically. So I do young people all the way to nursing homes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, wow. It was really interesting. Talking to teenagers, you think maybe talking to young people where they actually get what you're saying would be easier, but I don't know, man. They have 5 to a dozen to 25 different things on their minds that they're thinking. So they're not just listening to your words. They're probably more concerned about the hair placement, what kind of facial hair you have, if your jeans are tight enough or baggy enough, depending on what hair it is.
Yeah.
And when you go to these nursing homes, man, all they do is hear because they can hardly move a muscle. I'm just being honest with you, 95 years old.
Yeah. Well, and powerful. I think there's something about teenagers are in this world where everyone's on the come up, everyone's rising, so everyone like a stock. Everyone wants to be in on the hot new stock. But I mean, and this is a really sad thing, but like in a nursing home, these people don't get visited a ton.
No, they don't.
And
Nope.
so just being able to go there, you have an audience who really
Very interesting. Yeah, your clout is already high just because you're there. Even though they've had family who probably invested years and years into their lives, the fact that they haven't been there as much in the past recent history of their lives.
Yeah.
They give clout to all these people that come in. So it's also really fun because you get to hear all the stories and view and perspective on people and things.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. I was actually working on, so for you listeners at home or in your car, or, wherever people listen, I have a lot of schemes. And I'm working on them, but I pretty much work on them in the concept of researching it, getting the URL, and doing like all the stuff except for actually selling the product.
Okay.
So I was working on it. I was trying to start a thing called My Life Story, and it would be basically just take like a camera in and just have an interview with these older people about how they got married, what happened when they were childhood, their craziest stories. Because every person in a nursing home has something insane that's happened.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. One of them was like, for example, I think they were the wife of the guy who started Michelin tires or something. So
wow.
So the money and the dollars.
Yeah.
But not just that, but the starting of the company and the whole as it got to rising up. And how would you know that? They're like normal people just talking, skiing with you. They're not necessarily in that same level of society when they're in a nursing home as they were maybe the past 50 years.
Which is crazy because they've done stuff.
Yes.
That is real.
Very real. Things that you and I would consider in this day.
Yeah.
If we knew those people, we would be impressed.
Yeah, I'd be like, oh, dude, check this, my friend. Her husband she helped start Michelin tires.
Yep. And you would talk about them a lot, like this is my neighbor, all this kind of things. You tell those stories. Yet, I don't know if it's just because it's not current that we don't do it, or just the new people, they only know what they know. When I new people, I just mean younger.
Yeah.
It's just, I guess you just know what you know and live in the world that you live in, and it's not as common that you meet strangers unless they're your grandparents who are.
Yeah. Well, there's I forget which country, one of the countries in the world, of the many countries, they started a program where they basically do kind of like daycare nursing home type things. So the kids get to be tutored and work with the old people.
Interesting.
Which is so perfect because, I mean, when you go through menopause or andropause, your brain actually rewires to place more value on children. Whether that's God or genetics or whatever. I believe it could be both. Yeah. There's a thing where basically when you get older, your brain switches from about, my legacy, let's create something, to let's help the kids, let's help the society, let's take care of the next generations and give them stuff.
That just makes me think about the reality of a lot of times we think it should be all or nothing. In other words, like just in self-improvement, self-help, humanitarian, just being a good citizen or person.
Yeah.
You would think, oh, we need to be more like old people, and people in their 30s and 20s would tell, or we might tell people that are older like they need to be more like younger. When the reality is there might just be different stages in your life. Yeah,
true.
That it's just a time to maybe build your own legacy in one sense, because that time's not going to last forever.
Yeah.
So, or even in order to build it, so that you can raise those other ones to build it and to build it and to build it. And then almost like you get to chill and relax and rest and enjoy the fruits of your labors. I don't know.
And enjoy the few fruits of showing others how to do your labors, because no one makes it without people behind them.
I don't think so.
I mean, that's just...
People say they do sometimes.
Yeah.
Self-made millionaires,
Self-made millionaires still had employees. They still had...
dozens of people behind them, too. Even if it wasn't their parent who they thought should have been there and they had, like, daddy issues or whatever.
Well, I mean, I think that I felt like I haven't had a mentor. Okay. But then someone wrote something on Facebook or something, and it made me realize I have books. I'm being mentored by G.K. Chesterton or C.S. Lewis or Kierkegaard or Thomas Sowell, like all these brilliant people who've spent their entire lives doing something.
Very interesting.
And so it's not that I don't have a mentor. My mentor, I don't know them personally, and that's okay.
Yeah, it is okay. It's really okay, especially like if you're going after similar things that you're reading from the books, but the people around you aren't experts in those areas.
Yeah.
They couldn't. How would they show up for like that? That wouldn't be fair to expect them to show up for you in that area, but yet they support you in a lot of other areas.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good thought.
It's kind of like when you're a kid, when you're a teenager, you know, hate your parents or whatever.
True.
But that's because you've never experienced a life without them. If you had a life without them, it'd be different because, I mean, you wouldn't have food. You would be spending all of your energy and resources on just survival, on, you know, getting your next meal. Like, you don't realize how even the people who maybe aren't in your field or don't care about, you know, I care about philosophy, theology, comedy, economics, that kind of stuff. Like, but that doesn't mean the people who don't care about that aren't getting me there, because they're providing the real life base to get me into my airy-fairy, you know, theoretical crap.
Yeah. Something like for my daddy, for example, like he grew up, he played a little bit of sports, but not a whole lot. But my brothers and I really like basketball. My dad didn't know anything about basketball. In fact, he came out to play with us twice. It was a comedy show is what it was.
It was bad.
Yes, it was really bad. But the fact that he came out was awesome.
Yeah.
And he worked extra hard to get a bonus because he bought us like a real life NBA basketball hoop that we put in our front yard.
That's cool.
You know what I mean? Things like that. He was always at our games. He made sure we had the best shoes. We get the pennies, the Kobe's and all that kind of stuff. And that's a very intentional or firsthand application of what you're talking about. Like he really did show up in that area. But even he never knew anything about comedy or performing, and I didn't do any of that growing up. My mom, my dad, my grandparents, I don't even think did anything with that.
Wow.
But it was a part of who I was the whole time. And so when it came time to actually step into a little bit of a comedic role or stepping in front of people, which is often the number one response that people say when you do stand-up comedy or even improv comedy, is that they're impressed and that you're brave.
Yeah.
It's not even that they laughed at you, even though you know they were laughing, but that wasn't the poignant like impression that it made on them. And so just even thinking about that with my parents, just the fact that they were there for me in the basic needs, like you said, and when it comes time to doing something that you were made for, you're ready for it. Yeah.
And you have, I feel like there's brain working. No.
I was ready for an explosion there. Some synapses.
Yeah, no, it's gone. It's gone. So anyway, tell us about, comedy or whatever.
Comedy and stuff. I got a lot of whatever. I got some in my backyard, got some in my house. I've been working on a little bit of whatever as well. And so a little bit of that whatever. One thing that I have thought about a lot with comedy, looking back at some of the, I wouldn't say they're originators, but since media has become a big thing with television, like Bing Crosby and Bob Hope, is one thing they would do is they did the television stuff, they did the stand-up stuff, but they would go to overseas and stuff.
Yeah.
They would go to these army stations.
Yeah, they'd go to Air Force bases or Navy bases and just talk to people who hadn't been talked to in months.
Think about that?
Like these are people. This is before they didn't have TVs, they didn't have laptops, they weren't watching Netflix while they're over there.
Right. That's interesting. And that's just within the last 20 years that people have even been doing that.
Yeah.
So it's a huge deal that they would do that. I still think there's something very much there as far as that personal touch visiting them.
Yeah.
Like for example, they can order something off of Amazon, but when someone from America or their home sends it to them, it means a whole lot more.
Well, it's because there's thought attached to it. It's not just the item. It's the item plus, hey, I was thinking about you and I care enough to know what you like or to try and find something new you'll like.
Right.
There's just so much more, to say it cheesily, so much more love attached to it.
Mm-hmm. That makes me think like a couple different things, even just like implementing comedy, because something that you and I have talked about and consistently you've even taught me a little bit is just we can make people laugh. In fact, almost you can do it in a myriad of ways, but often what you remember is the things that actually made you feel good, not just laugh. Things that hit something that was a little bit deeper than just a simple need to chuckle.
Yeah.
And one example that still hits me so hard, it was my girlfriend. I was like 20 years old, right? And we were parked in the driveway and we're leaving, I think, like one of her friend's house or something. And right in front of the car, I opened the door, closed it for her, and in between, like, what is this, 3 seconds, right? Yeah. In between me closing the door on her, letting her into the passenger side of the car, there's a tree hanging right over the car, and I grabbed a flower from it.
Oh, yeah.
I thought it was super simple. Like, I didn't even think anything about it. It was almost like me saying, cool, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If someone does something. So I go in the car and I give it to her, and I could literally feel something on her. Like, she was so happy. She was so appreciative. She was like, thank you. But it wasn't one of those like, thank you, I appreciate it. She was honestly, genuinely really moved. And what we were even talking about, specifically is maybe heightened, going overseas to people who don't have it. But I think people have that innate desire for
value,
period. Whether they're overseas or just in your front yard or in Colorado or wherever they are. And what's powerful about it, though, is when it's simple, when it has thought to it. Like, I could have given her a thing, maybe even a bouquet, but it was something about she knew I was thinking about her in those 3 seconds.
Yeah.
So when you're presenting comedy, a lot of comedians, good comedians, that I've even seen in the short term that I've been doing it, is when you actually, is the word cater, where you kind of make it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, for example, I did a stand-up bit at Church for All Nations.
Yeah.
They really, and around their whole church, there's flags from all around the nations. Mm-hmm. I don't know how many nations there are, but there's lots of them.
Close to 200, over 200.
Yeah, right. Sure. And some are even added.
Yeah, it's tough to, do you count Taiwan? Is that a real country or not? According to us, yes. According to China, no. There's a problem. Go ahead.
And Guam. It's places like that. So you're just like, okay, it's basically a naval base or army base or something, U.S. base out of there, Guam. Yeah. But I just made a couple of jokes about the nations. I made a couple of jokes about...
and Church for All Nations. They love that.
Church for All Nations, exactly.
You make jokes about the flags.
All the flags, and you walk in, you're like, I saw a couple of BMWs on the way in, and a couple of Toyotas, and I knew I was in the right place. And it's just... But what it does is it gives them that flower. It gives them that flower. It was simple, but you took the time to actually think about it.
Yeah.
And, as skilled artists that we're, aspiring to be, mm-hmm. If you allow yourself to think that way, it can actually touch people more than just the laughing side of it. Yeah. It touches them to like, hey, I care for you. Yeah.
They know someone. Yeah, that's good. That's good. They knew someone was coming there, and not just coming there to put on a show. Because I've seen shows with some of my favorite artists. There's this rapper Pigeon John. I love him. But he was in the Springs, and you could tell the motions were good, but his heart wasn't in it. He was just going through the motions, which isn't to say that he's that way at all the shows. No. He's probably just having an off night or whatever. But it's so much different when you can feel the energy that people are there to do something for you.
It's a really good point. It goes even down to the basic of like a cashier.
Yeah.
Let's say like if we are a cashier, just when you're present.
Yeah.
When you're, one of the phrases is the lights are on, but there's nobody home.
Yeah. Yep.
Like you're physically there, the motions are good, and it's not even a knock on the person. It really isn't. Yeah. It's just maybe a recognition of, for us, how.
Yeah. So, what's your goal with comedy?
That's interesting you say that. Like, comedy is much more of an avenue of, partly I would say self-expression. Mm-hmm. Creative expression for sure. It's fun. Yeah. It's something. It's a good thing to do. At the same time, a lot of what we do as far as the input that we get, like from the crowd and stuff like that, you can get among friends, just to be honest with you. Yeah. If you have a good group of friends where you make people laugh and you joke, and then so you have that camaraderie, so you can get laughed at to a degree, or you can get just the even applause, quote unquote. Yeah. You actually might get real hand claps in the audience as opposed to...
You get the myriad of expressions of applause. Yeah. Some people are like... just smacking their lips. They don't have hands. It's tragic.
Clap, smack
oh yeah, I snap my fingers. So when like a 50s beatnik.
My favorite one is when they. Never mind. We're just not going to go there. Just where they clap with you, but they try to make arm farts with their fists. It's like
I've never had someone applaud me by arm farting.
I'm waiting for the day. That's when I know I've arrived. If it's only 2 years in, I'm hanging it up, retiring, and I'm going home. I don't think it's because it's a good thing. It's because, oh my gosh, what did I just do?
I just broke comedy.
I just messed it up for everybody. And if I continue this on, in other words, I'm going to stop this plague where it's at, lock the doors, put it on quarantine, and don't let it go any further.
But what if you really want to change the way things work, man?
Well, man, I guess if you're wearing a degree, I'm all right. But
think about it. You're slapping your hands together. What is that?
That's true. It's the intrinsic. It's just culturally acceptable, I guess. It is culturally different than putting your hand under your armpit or something.
It's so funny though, because like they've done research, and applause basically fills up the same portion of your brain as cocaine. So like applause essentially is a drug, like applause and laughter especially from a stage,
Okay.
but it's a literal drug. And so it's kind of funny that like I always thought like the applause was the thing, but no, it's the valuation behind it. It's, hey, everyone's giving me value, therefore my brain is lighting up like a Christmas tree.
Wow. And you know what? It's funny that you say that because you said, what do you want? You and me, we hang out with some of the same kind of friends. We actually clap for each other when we enter rooms. Like, it's a literal thing that we do. We actually applause for each other when we're just hanging out.
Yeah.
So I guess when you have that. You might not need a stage to affirm you, but that's also probably a healthy, or a healthier. I shouldn't say just straight down.
Well, they've done studies on addiction, and so the studies on addiction have always shown like a rat in a cage will drink the meth or heroin or cocaine until they die, because there's like water with heroin or water without it, and they'll drink it until they literally kill themselves. And so a lot of the stuff we know on addiction has been based on that. And then someone a few years ago just realized there's a big hole in this study.
Okay.
The rats are by themselves. So they basically got a big rat cage, put like 50 rats in there. They put exercise equipment. They had, you could get a girlfriend rat. They had real life.
Gotcha.
And then the rats still use
girlfriend rat.
Yeah, girlfriend, lady rat. So some of the rats would still take the heroin or the cocaine or whatever, but not a single one was even addicted. And it speaks to the fact that addiction isn't based on just an addictive substance causes you to be addicted and you're screwed. Addiction is, this is maybe a emotional way to say it, but to some degree, addiction is loneliness. Addiction is lack of value. And so you don't need the applause from the stage because you have that value. And so it's not just because you're getting the applause, it's because everyone is going out of their way to value each other in your community. And so that means that a lot of the addictions that would happen are just naturally not there.
That's interesting. Yeah. One of the things that I've heard is it's not an addiction as far as like a substance, but depression. Yeah. Like it's not even that people want it, but it's a constant torment. It has a lot of the same influences, but you can simply solve that on a temporary basis at least, or on a simple basis is just by getting out of the house period and getting around people. Not even that love you, that just affirm that you're a human and you're alive. You know what I mean? To a degree. I've seen that. I
think that's a little bit more with you because you're very extroverted.
True, okay.
But the concept is still there. Just by being around people and being treated as a human, you're going to get a little better.
A little better, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know there's extreme cases for sure, and I understand that. At the same time, like addressing even small things is still decent.
Yeah, yeah. And my mom always, whenever I'm depressed, she's like, "Have you exercised?" And one thing that her chiropractor, who's the chiropractor my mom goes to, is one of the top in the world. She was listed as the one of the top 5 female chiropractors in the entire country.
Nice.
And she does works with the Olympians and like the judo team and the wrestling team and, does all that. So she's really, really good. So basically I'm trusting her on this because I haven't done any research on whether this is true or not. But she said that your muscles don't rest by doing nothing. Like, you think I'm tired, I need to do nothing. And that's true for a lot of your body and your mental stuff. Gotcha. For your muscles, you rest by light to moderate exercise. So going for a walk or doing a few jumping jacks or just kind of playing at a park is actually what gives you rest. So a lot of times you're just getting into this lethargic, like beat up, hard state. And it's really nothing more than just, hey, my body is tired and it's telling me to be depressed because it needs to rest. But the rest for your muscles is movement.
Wow. That's something else. How the natural affects the emotional affects the physical, and and if you grow up, well, you said like you're interested in philosophy, which you very much are, and I'm very what other people would consider religious, but just the idea of sometimes you get so far into one area. Yeah. A bodybuilder might get so far into physical, so if something's going wrong, they think they need to, do something physical, or if you're a pastor or a preacher or a Christian guy like me. Or just real spiritual thinking because you've seen validation in those areas. So, and certain breakthroughs, so you think it has to be spiritual now. Or you think I've got to find the right philosophy to really solve my whole being when it is, look, either workouts or get around people. Maybe it's a social thing. Yeah. And I've seen that. And, sometimes it's troubleshooting.
What do you mean?
Troubleshooting, trying to figure out which one it is.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah,
maybe it's
yeah,
not
of
being
course.
around people. Maybe it's not just working out. Maybe it is a spiritual issue.
Maybe it's I don't have a goal, it could be anything.
Yeah, it's the motivation to do something.
Yeah.
And one thing that I learned, even I've been moved out here about coming up on 3 years, right?
Uh-huh.
And fun, because I grew up playing basketball, so I was really driven. And then the other thing in my life was like spending time with the church or giving to the community or just talking about spiritual things all the time and talking about church. And it was valid. At the same time, there's like a whole nother world of fun, which is coming out to a comedy show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is actually performing comedy, which is, playing not just sports, but actually laughing and goofing and doing things you've never done before.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my gosh, so are you saying that fun is almost as valuable as like a spiritual thing or reading a philosophy book or getting a chiropractic treatment? Or in my experience, it has been.
Yeah.
It really has been. Just simple fun.
And I think that's part of why I want to be in comedy is because there's just a refreshment that happens. Like when I was young, I was, super depressed, wouldn't come out of my room for like a week not literally a week at a time, but not for more than an hour or two a day for weeks.
I totally know what you mean, yeah.
And, even my grandparents would come from out of town. I'd come up, say hi, go back down to my room, And
so it's very real.
Yeah,
in other words.
It was real. And it was just one of the things that helped me the most was just comedy stuff, the Muppets or reading Dave Barry or, whatever. I'd read, I'd do this stuff and I feel okay. And it's just buying, I mean, it's weird, but I imagine it could be like a diabetic, just having that little bit of insulin and suddenly you're okay for a while.
Something super simple.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times real issues are just small issues that are in the forefront.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're staring at them, they seem like a big deal. But like you said, a little bit of insulin, hey, it's a real thing. It's not negating the reality.
And then it might be like you were cranky and you hated your wife and you wanted to kill your kids. But no, it's just that your blood sugar was weird.
It's so simple. Well, I mean, a lot of our listeners can probably understand this is the new term hangry.
Yeah, hangry, yep.
And women are, don't get me wrong, guys are, but I've known more women to admit to it at least.
Yeah.
When they say when they're hangry, their brain is somewhere else. They're not present. They're not there. And we just talked about being present, being so valuable. And it's like, you don't really hate life or hate your job. You need a power bar. I mean, it's almost like
those Snickers commercials are real.
Yes, it's a $2.50 fix.
Yeah.
Like simple or 79 cents if you go to Walmart. And so it's just like get a Snickers. You're okay. Now, I don't advocate Snickers because I'm not a sugar guy, but
yeah, but the concept.
Oh man,
get an organic Snickers. So yeah.
Get an organic Snickers.
Get an organic Snickers.
If you find one, let us know. Please write it.
Yeah. Just let us know. That would be amazing. I'll try it. I don't really care for Snickers particularly. I'm more of a Heath guy.
Heath, nice.
Yeah, the crunch, it's stuck in your teeth afterwards.
Yes.
So good.
Especially in blizzards.
I don't
know, that's my thing.
That is my thing. That in ice cream, because it's such a texture difference. I love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, the whole experience of it. It doesn't even taste better to me, but I think it's going to be an experience that I had before. I'm like, let's go for it.
That's awesome. So we should talk about comedy or something. Yeah, whatever. It's fine.
Yeah. Well, we're definitely going down that road. I know we were. Here's one thing I was thinking about. Just even the comedic side of it when people physically laugh.
Oh,
there's endorphins released and stuff like that, but it's a permission given to them, especially when you're sitting on stage.
There's such a huge permission.
There's something about I like live comedy.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't honestly been to the theater too many comedy movies, just because nowadays I don't find many clean ones that I'm okay with. But when you're in a crowd of it, there's a certain energy.
Yeah.
And you're doing it with people, so there's that social aspect of it. And I've known many people where they're like, I don't really know if I want to go, I don't want to go, and then afterward they're like, I'm so mad I didn't go to every other one of your shows. You know what I mean? It's like I'm so glad that I came to this because this was just what I needed.
Yeah.
Or honestly, I think a lot of them don't even have words to put to it. Yeah. But they just say a few.
Laughter does good like a medicine. I mean, my mom does massage, and she reads a lot of books on pain and how the body works, stuff like that. And one of the things she says is that deep breathing actually, when you breathe deeply, it actually kind of massages your organs, it moves them around and is really healthy for them. And so laughter is basically literally like fixing your insides in some degree.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Let me ask you this, Zach. Have you ever watched something where you laughed so hard that you were sore the next day?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's a literal workout. And what you just said is when you actually work out, you massage your muscles.
Mm.
So,
oh, yeah.
Or you relax
so
your muscles.
It's all interconnected.
Yeah. So when you laugh hard enough, one of mine was watch a Space Ghost. It was one of his interviews with Brack, and I don't know, I was 13 or 14, so I was in middle school years, which is stupid. It was so funny.
Yeah.
Which is why Jackass is so big, because that same generation is still watching.
Well, when you're 13, 14, your brain changes. So it rewires your brain in such a way that you need extreme stuff for about 3, 4, or 5 years, depending on, until you hit the next brain development period of your life. So you actually need crazier, weirder stuff. And so there's a physiological reason why stuff like Jackass works, because for teenagers, especially guys, they have to have extreme stimuli or they don't feel anything, because their brain's readjusting to a new set of chemicals going into it.
I believe it. I mean, just spend a little bit of time, or friends.
Just spend a little time around adolescence.
Oh my gosh, they will do the craziest things.
Yeah.
If you affirm them, you're not going to get mad at them, they'll do it.
Yeah.
They'll go up to strangers. The fear of man even drops, which is wild, because that's the number one fear there is. Fear of man.
Well, public speaking is the number one fear, and that's exactly
because you're in
is.
front of men. Yeah. And so when you think about that, the wild thing, but if you get them to sometimes just giving them the opportunity to do something like that.
Yeah.
Like you said, I don't know if it just meets it.
And the validation. I mean, that's what we were talking about earlier. It gives the validation that they wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah. And at that age, I guess they're looking for everything extreme. And I don't know. I don't know if it's just that age or something, but when you're younger, your validation comes through a certain avenue. You receive it a certain way.
Yeah.
But when you're 12, you don't receive it the same way anymore.
Yep.
Your dad just can't be like, hey, come over here and cuddle. You know what I mean? When that might have worked when you were 8 and 7. It probably worked for me, but... that's what I'm saying. Some people, for sure. It's just, but I think you need something like...
Well, you need to start becoming your own autonomous being.
Yeah, which is awesome and fun. So giving people opportunity to do that. And Space Ghost, it was 2 aliens. I mean, we're talking about extreme, and they're interviewing each other. There's nothing real about this interview. It's not a real person, but... what in the world's happening? And I remember I was, you don't sit on couches, you do whatever you want. I'm sitting on the coffee table, rolled over, laughing. Like I can feel my stomach getting a workout. And I was crying. And it was probably 11 or 12 at night for one thing, which always helps. Because I don't know if your emotions are just more susceptible or whatever at that time.
Well, for me, it's like 2 or 3 a.m., 4 a.m. Probably now like 7 a.m.
Oh, yeah, that's true. You're working overnight. That's a whole other story. Get home from work and turn on some comedy, start crying. or you don't even you're thinking about the gym and you're like, nah, let's go watch some Jim Carrey. that's the new
Jim Carrey's stand-up. I just so enjoy it. And I know it wasn't exactly your thing, but so good. He's like, isn't that the most beautiful mushroom cloud you ever saw? So good.
I like how he gets into it. That's what I do appreciate, how it's not just he doesn't necessarily rely on the joke.
Yeah.
But he's like, it's
an entire reality.
Yeah,
that's actually interesting. Like, there's a lot of people who just, stand-up purists are more like stand-up is simply verbal, nothing else. But there's the verbal side, the emotional side, the physical side, accents. Like every little bit of it is another kind of building block. And Jim Carrey was one of the few who actually hit all the building blocks, I feel like.
Sometimes I think it's just your thing. It's a gift.
Yeah.
You're born and raised up to, at least in that avenue. And when it...
Well, he was also like the 11th of 13 kids, I believe. And lived in a van, literally lived in a van. Like their entire family would help out. Now, I might be getting these details wrong. It's been a while since I've read stuff about him. But like their entire family had to help out with like being custodians and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. He was raised in a really hard knock life. And I think, maybe he compensated by making his family laugh, making them okay. And then, when
you see that it works, you keep going with it and developing it.
And then he would just, spend hours in front of the mirror working on his faces and stuff like that. So he wasn't just kind of like making a face on stage and then going, oh, okay, that's what I do. I mean, I make faces. I don't in the mirror, I'm like, okay, that was enjoyable, but I have no idea how to reproduce that on stage because my mind doesn't work in physicalities, it works in emotional states. So I'm like, okay, this emotional state is what I need to elicit, and so I just kind of do a face that seems like it would do that. And so I have no idea if I'm even making the same faces every time. Yeah. I'm just doing the best I can. But for him,
that's probably your style too.
Yeah.
Because you're more emotional, and so it's like, if that emotion means something different to you on a different night, it's probably portrayed better that way still.
That's a good point, actually.
Because what you're actually portraying is an emotion, so you want them to feel you more than observe you.
Yeah, so I'm not creating... Yeah, that's actually really good. I like that.
So yeah, so it's kind of like, just like we often will admire somebody for being them and like walking in what they're really gifted in, like for Jim Carrey. And yet we won't recognize that in ourselves, and we'll try to mimic those people that we admire them for doing something that we aren't doing. Yeah. I guess it's just interesting. It's weird. I know you can learn from them, but at the same time, it's like the reason he's good is because he's doing the best. He's doing what made him. Yeah. What
worked for him.
Exactly. My brother, I'm the second oldest of 6, and so he's the third oldest in there. And we would just laugh and joke. My family, we're all pretty extroverted and real social, and when we'll do something, if people start laughing, we keep going. Like, we won't stop. Like, I put my foot on my friend's car, and someone thought that was funny, so I continued to climb over the entire car and pound on it and try to, like, act like I was a zombie reaching in through the open window. You know what I mean? Like, and I wouldn't have thought of that if they didn't laugh, but I was like, well, let's
They're laughing, go for it! Yes, and.
Yes, and. You just kept going. You're like, for the entertainment of others. That's actually, like, my family's motto. For the entertainment of others. We'll just do it. It doesn't even matter if it costs us just a coat, or like we'll lay out our next coat in the middle of a puddle of a parking lot if there's a girl. Yeah. It's like, no, don't walk around the puddle. Walk on my coat over the puddle.
And then the coat sinks down. They're wet anyway.
But it was the thought that counts. So.
I think that practice made more sense when everyone wore really thick cloaks.
Yeah, this is in Florida. They're not even raincoats. So what am I thinking? They're sweaters.
You just rip off your shirt, flex a little. Hey, babe, walk over this. It's already soaked.
Hey, if they're
like, walk over it hard so the water splashes on my bare, glistening chest.
Make a little hop and skip. That's so funny. We literally run and race each other to open the door for the lady and push each other over on the way. Why? Only because of them. Once they walked away, we wouldn't even talk about it. We're just like, okay, that was fun.
Whatever.
But because they thought it might be cool, we're like, let's do it. And so that's Jim Carrey, part of a big family, you know?
Yeah.
You just go for it, man.
I wonder if that's a thing. I haven't researched the size of families of comedians, but I know, just the ones I can think of, a lot of them were from big families.
Really?
Yeah, I'm thinking. So Brian Regan's one of 6.
Okay.
Bob Hope was one of 5, I think. Jack Benny was one of crap, I can't remember. Marx Brothers had 5. Were 6 brothers. Of course, now some of these are older, and so obviously family sizes were bigger. Mm-hmm. But I think I don't know. It'd be interesting to look at.
It could be a thing. Not necessarily exclusive.
Yeah.
At the same time, there is something to it. A lot of who I am is because I was a big family.
Yeah.
A lot of who you are is because of that big family.
Yeah. I'm one of 6 as well, by the way.
Gotcha. So yeah, you think about it.
So Jim Carrey's thing is kind of being a little bit of everything, the manic energy, the impressions. So when it comes to comedy, what are you feeling like? I've talked to you about this before, but what do you feel is you? What do you feel makes you on stage?
I think one of the biggest things is actually being very present to the people there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. And I recognize that in just being social in the rest of my life is you show them you're there. For one thing, by eye contact, like if it was personal, but you're really present with your mind. But that I show that by physicality.
Yeah.
I show that by a lot of facial expressions.
Yeah.
And I show that by my verbal cues. So sometimes, for example, when I do a lot of my comedy, it's not just about my 15 minutes, 10 minutes on stage, or hour and a half on stage. It's actually a lot of
hour and a half being improv.
Improv, yeah, exactly. Yeah. The improv side of things. So a lot of it's actually the before, when I'm present with them. Mm-hmm. It's the in between the improv games, or it's after when I'm talking with them. So it's not in order to set me up for that time on stage, but it's a part of the whole deal.
Yeah.
So being present, being there for them. And so what that looks like is, for me, is being physical, being even a little bit loud.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it arrogant, but I would call it more like party loud. You know,
Party
more
loud,
like celebration
like
or party loud, where you're there. When you walk into the room, you're like, hey, everybody! Not just, hey, everybody going around, one by one. At the same time, you're like, it's my time to shine.
You're a party leader.
I'm a party leader. And so it's like, when all the faces are on me, it's like, let's do this thing. It's time.
And so how do you translate that to when you're actually on the stage?
When I'm actually on stage, definitely, I have one bit where I literally dance to a song for 4 minutes.
It's so funny because everyone's like, oh, this is really funny. He's dancing. He's still dancing. Wait, he's really doing this. No way. Is he going to dance this whole song?
I had no idea that's how people were going to respond. Like, my idea was, like, almost set it up. I had a whole, bit where I had this whole thing, with jokes and, a couple of actions and stuff. But it was the whole reason I did that bit was because I wanted to dance to the song. The jokes were just made up for that. I didn't really care about those jokes so much. And within 1 minute, everybody's clapping. But in my brain, I'm like, this is going to last 4 minutes. But after 35 seconds to a minute, they were done. Yeah. I mean, people started drinking their coffee again. They turned around to their friends and started talking. In fact, one of the audience members, he literally came back and he was like, man, that was a good dance. He's like, I was really into it for the first minute, and then I checked some stuff on my phone, and then I realized, wait a second, he's still going. And so it was like, it was just a whole other world, which I think that's part of the awkward comedy where, like, I don't know if that's the best terminology, but when you stay with them long enough, they have to sink in. It's like going on a 2-week vacation as opposed to one. Sometimes when you go on like only a couple days vacation, you don't really settle in, you don't really rest, you don't really get away from the office. You know what I mean? But every day after that, you really settle in and it lets it happen. So in a much more micro level, where you just keep going, people don't know what to do except to be like, wow, life really is not embarrassing. Where life really isn't as big of a deal or as serious as I thought. Like when you can take heart and take light of it, because sometimes they start to feel bad for you because they think that you don't know what you're doing, which is entirely true. But you're not embarrassed for not knowing what you're doing. So at the end, they almost appreciate it.
I had a friend who was like, that was the greatest thing I've ever seen. Like he Matthew Brown, he just came up afterwards. It's like, just watching that was just wonderful. It was exactly what I needed. He just kept dancing.
He didn't stop. People didn't know what to do.
Yeah. Well, that's actually how Steve Martin did. Like, his entire comedy routine was based on the idea of not giving them specific punchlines, like creating the tension of laughter and never officially releasing it. So it just kind of releases at awkward times because you just start laughing because you're laughing at all this weird built-up stuff and you don't even know quite what you're laughing at. You're just like, what is going on?
Oh, that's so good. And I can relate to that because my comedy isn't necessarily about, or at least at this point, isn't just about some pristine or precise, delivery or message. It's honestly
it's kind of about the energy.
Yes, being with the people. And what energy do you have without the people?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So exactly, I feel you. So sometimes it's not only just feeling it out, but it's recognizing that this isn't I'm not writing a book.
Yeah.
Which I guess I could do. It's just, the reality is it's the people that are there. That's number one. It's just always number one, whether I know them or not. Like, I've done some things where I don't hardly know anybody there. It's still about the people, though. And so it's like, I just trust that, hey, I have this gift for a reason. The Lord's using me for a reason. Yeah. So let's go after it. Let's build some energy. If they figure it out at the end, great. If they don't, it's not a big problem either. Like, what person in the world has ever pleased 100% of their people?
Yeah, I mean
that's not a thing.
You don't like Brian Regan.
I don't think he's the greatest. I mean,
to me, that's insanity. Like, but I don't really care for Louis C.K. And Louis C.K. is like the god of comedy. For anyone who is a comedian, they are in love with Louis C.K.
They want to be Louis C.K.
Yeah, and so you could be you can be Louis C.K. or Brian Regan and have people who are just, even comedians, even people who love this stuff, who are just like, it's not my thing.
It's just not. See, isn't that wild?
Yeah.
So the pressure's got to fall off.
Yeah.
You got to be like, it's okay if everybody didn't laugh at you.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is in people that tend to remember the one, criticism over the 10 complaints. But
over the 10,
10 compliments. Sorry, yeah. Focus on the 10 compliments, because the reality is people will say they're there to touch people's lives, but then they'll be hurt when they didn't touch the one person's life.
Did you touch someone's life?
I bet you did.
And you can touch them to the point where they remember it for years. I mean, I remember Mike Warnke, Christian comedian from the 80s, crazy scandals and stuff, but like they'd found out that he was basically lying about like his entire testimony. He had this whole thing about how he was like, leader of a satanic cult and like all this crazy
was it part of his
stuff.
Bit, or was it just?
It was like that was kind of he had like a testimony thing, and he would kind of go back and forth between comedy and serious, and it was completely fake apparently, but it's still like just that story, like not the story specifically, but just the listening to him over and over, was like a life-changing thing. Like it taught me comedy. It taught me to be serious, have a deeper meaning with your comedy. I would never be who I am without that. And that, I mean, so the point wasn't intended to be that he was a crazy liar, but like, but you touch people, and he never knew me. He never knew I liked him. I mean, I've been like one of his audiences, but there were like 10,000 people. He had no idea, But I just listening to his stuff over and over and over again made such a difference in me. And like, so I was in a recording studio with my friend Ty. He was recording for a songwriting contest, and I just afterwards I just kind of went in there and just did a couple of jokes for my act, and just. I have these little poems of the douchebag, and I just say really like, roses are red, violets are blue. Compared to me, girl, you're only a 2. I call that one love poem to a beautiful lady.
Oh my God.
Just and it kind of builds on that, and there's multiple poems and stuff. But I was just doing that, and I had a friend who listened. My friend Daniel, Daniel Lamb, who has actually like worked at the recording studio. He recorded that, and I had friends tell me later, like every couple days, I walk in and I see Daniel Lamb just listening to that bit that you did and just giggling to himself, and I'm like, I had no idea. I was just doing crap.
But he had it recorded.
Yeah, and it meant something to him, And so we don't know the impact we're having on these people.
That's true. And there's something about performers, like even musicians and people who do it for a long period of time, where it's also sometimes at certain seasons of people's lives.
Yeah.
Not everybody's in the same season, but sometimes if you hit them when they're there, it's just like, oh my gosh, like that's, and it really is, it's a marker in their life because that helped them in that season.
Yeah.
And they remember that because like, hey, you know what? Even in the hard times, like good comes out of it.
And there's usually, I mean, maybe this is just the way my brain works, but I usually I have anchor points through different seasons. Like it could be a preaching from a pastor, or like I was having a really hard time. It's still going. So I was having a really hard. What time do you need to leave?
Oh, I'm good at time.
Okay, cool.
I'll leave at like 7:30.
I have no idea how long it's been going. I don't even know how to use this.
Still running, so that we weren't just talking.
Oh yeah, it's still. Oh yeah, thanks. I haven't checked that in like 40 minutes. So good to know that our podcast is still going. Hey, we're 51 minutes in. High five.
Nice.
Typically, like the podcasts I like are usually right about an hour. So
really?
Yeah,
okay.
Those are the ones that I listen to. Bill Simmons, Nerdist, Nerdist Writers Panel. Yeah, usually an hour.
Usually interviews.
10. Yeah, it's usually like talking to his friend Joe or like his friend Haralabob Vulgarmos.
Awesome.
Whenever I need a fake name, I just use his. It's hilarious. Haralabob.
That's awesome.
One trick in comedy is K's, W's, H's, certain letters are funnier than others.
I got you.
So you can actually just like, I scratched my eye. Okay. I scratched my cornea. Like cornea is just a funnier word.
Interesting.
Like
even though it's a C, it's the K.
Yeah, the K sound is what's funny.
So the what, the K, and the H.
Mortal cornea bad. Okay, maybe not. I redacted that joke.
Mortal Kombat.
I actually saw a webcomic. They had Portal Combat. So it was like the Portal, the game, and then so it's just like Portal, and then suddenly someone just punches out of it, pulls the dude's heart out. It's like Portal Combat. You didn't expect it at all. It was great.
Oh my gosh, where comedy's gone since YouTube. I like it. People's expression, man. You don't have to be something to be something.
Well, it's because you can do shorter stuff.
Okay.
It used to be in order to be a comedian, you needed to put out a whole magazine or get syndicated in
Wow.
a by King Features or whoever, or you needed to get on the radio. You needed to make movies for RKO, whoever. It needed to be a serious thing. Now there were way less people trying to do it. So there are tons of stories like someone just walked up to a studio head and was just like, "Hey, can I be in your movie?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure." Now, not literally that, but the equivalent of that. Like they just sent a letter to their favorite comedian. The comedian was like, "All right, meet me in this hotel, and we'll write jokes for the next 3 weeks."
Gosh.
Like just literally, I'm gonna write jokes for Milton Berle for 3 weeks straight now, or whatever.
I guess so.
But now you can do a little thing. And so
Gotcha.
Not everyone has the resources to be able to commit to full-time comedy.
Right. Right. Which makes a lot of sense. And even if you do have the resources, you don't necessarily have to.
Yeah.
Because you can put out stuff and you can keep your job and it's not as much strain maybe.
Yeah. And you can just put out like a weird thing like, Epic Mealtime or one of my favorites is How To Basic. Okay. And he just like does how-to videos, but it's like how to make sushi. And it's like this beautiful picture, cover art image, and you're like, oh, he's going to teach me how. And then it's just this guy on a cell phone, and he's just like pouring out entire bags of rice and slams a trout, like an uncooked trout, down on it. And he's just like, it's amazing.
Gosh. So basically like the length of commercials back in the day in the 40s and 50s when television was there.
Well, the length of commercials was like 1 to 2 minutes a lot of times.
Were they back then?
Yeah, commercials in the 50s were weird things. Like there wasn't even... Every commercial was... Modern advertising was not invented. It was invented really by Stan Freberg, who's one of my heroes. But like commercials were not humorous at all. They were, 4 in 5 housewives believes that this is the soap to beat. And then like a housewife standing around going, look at this, these clean dishes. And like, and it was just, they were
that was even valued
all...
more than humor. Humor's almost like valued higher than anything nowadays.
Yeah.
I mean, just look at Super Bowl commercials.
Yeah. Well, I think that happened a little bit around the time when the Old Spice commercial came out. Like that, look at your man, now back at me, now back at your man, now back to me. That whole thing. And it was right around then when, because advertising was still funny before then.
Yeah, it was.
But they didn't believe that, like,
that was the main
now
thing.
It's like half of the commercials need to have comedy. It used to be like maybe 10%, and before Stan Freberg, it was no one.
So, gotcha. Because I think about like that lady with the, what was valued was being considered a good housewife. Yeah. So you'd want to portray a good housewife.
And it's funny because a lot of people think like, oh, so sexist, but you don't realize they were working full time while their husbands were off in a world war. The 50s, like that whole culture was actually like purposely created because they wanted to get back to hyper reality. They knew that wasn't reality, but they were just so like determined, like we're going to get back to America and we're going to make things normal again and you're going to host house parties. And so that wasn't like, I mean, there was elements of sexism in it because there's elements of everything and there's elements of every
if you
negative
take it
thing.
that way, it's how you view too, how you feel too.
But it was specifically a reaction that every culture kind of subconsciously agreed to because they wanted to feel like things were normal and feel like they didn't just see millions of Germans killed and see like real, Jews, executed, whatever.
Yeah, and I think one of the first commercials that I remember being funny is if we jump 40 years to the 90s, Super Bowl commercial was the Tostitos commercials, I believe.
Which one?
And it was the one, no, it's the beer commercial, I'm sorry. It was the
Bud
Light where he says, I love you,
man. Yeah.
Where he says, I love you, man. And then next year it was Tostitos because it was the guy, he like jumps out of a plane and tries to bungee jump or something. And they just said something clever at the end. But that was also, it could have been my brain because I was like 8 or 9. But it was acceptable for a beer or a chip commercial to be funny because it's expected. Because those were party foods, it was a party drink. And now, like you said, they're making deodorant commercials funny. Like, what's funny about deodorant? Like, you and I don't walk around and be like, oh, do you have funny deodorant?
I smell funny. I didn't mean to make that joke. I apologize.
It's not a thing. Yeah. That's why.
No one's
if you think about it, and you're at the store, even though it has nothing, you don't value humor in your armpit, you still recognize it.
Well, I think part of that's actually
awesome.
Because of the social networking reality that we live in, the social media. Because what we used to value, in the 80s, we valued hyper femininity or hyper masculinity. We, in every era, we've valued different things. Now, because of the social media stuff, what we value is people seeming like someone we could hang out with. Like seeming like a cool dude. So we value a lot of humor because that means they're not taking themselves seriously. They're not like, hey, look, it's because we're a little bit more wary of big organizations. You know, in the 90s, 80s, we weren't wary of government and of companies in the same way, corporations in the same way we are now. And so now we want to feel like they could be our friends because we want to trust that they're running the same mindset as us.
Gotcha.
And so
like
humor is
people.
Yeah, exactly. Humor is a really good way to do that because if someone can laugh at themselves, Rob Lowe, he's, a handsome leading man type.
Mm-hmm.
But he laughs at himself constantly, plays these ridiculous characters, so we're all like, yeah, we love Rob Lowe. or Johnny Depp. We're like, yeah, we love Johnny Depp because he's one of us. He's just being a goober.
Right. He doesn't necessarily take himself too seriously because he plays all sorts of different characters.
Yeah.
That's something else when you think about it like that. And there's also there's something you can be, if you want to relay a humorous message, you can do it fast and quick, which is very social media type thing. Going through Facebook, you're just quick. If you want to relay some other messages,
it's hard to tell a serious love story in 30 seconds.
Yes,
you can do it, but it's harder.
Or even like affirmation and encouraging, you can do it in actually 5 seconds, but it's multiple. In order to really believe it, it needs to happen a dozen times, a couple dozen times. But humor, you can just simply laugh at something in 5 seconds. And that's need.
Yeah.
That met the need. So even just with these commercials now that it's getting super expensive and you're wanting to hit a point in 30 seconds, you just do it.
Also the viral thing. I didn't even think about that. With YouTube, they want people to replay it. No one's going to replay a car commercial where a glistening car drives down the road.
It's more for social things because if you think that's cool, somehow you think that I'm cool or validation.
Yeah.
Because I told you about this funny thing, now I'm funny.
And that's actually something like on my Facebook page. I don't do a lot of when I was younger, I did a lot of political stuff and was kind of angry and whatever. And then I realized you can. Well, first off, it's not healthy to be negative all the time and be thinking about this political stuff because politics has been like this since, the beginning of time. Every society in history has had corrupt, crappy politicians, and comparatively our situation is bad in a lot of ways, but really,
history of the world.
We're not stabbing each other to death in the Senate like the Romans, or we're not sacrificing kids outright like, Carthaginians.
Just go with that.
I'm just gonna gloss over that one.
The carcinogens.
The carcinogens. We're not terrible for you. But the thing is, people want to go to a source for that. They go to a place, get their negative or dramatic or whatever. They go to a place, get that, but they don't want that to be their day-to-day existence. They want their day-to-day existence to be real and fun and happy and so what you want to do on your social media is give them that. So I give them, hey, here's a funny video, and hey, here's an interesting thing I found. I try to match it to my actual personality. I posted an article. Only one person liked it because I knew no one would like it because it wasn't a crowd-pleasing thing, but it was a fascinating thing. It was it was an article by a guy who read every single issue of ISIS's magazine.
Okay.
But that's something that's a fascinating thing, and it's you can tell by the headline whether you want to read it or not. But some of my specifically INTJ friends are like, oh, okay, I need to read this and understand what's going on through these people's heads. But I don't do that every day. Gotcha. I earn the right to post something like that by posting things that will make them happy. It's like the 4 compliments to every criticism.
Mm-hmm.
That's a counseling technique, I believe. And so, you have to build
credibility.
Credit. You have to build credit in people, mental credit with people, so they're like, okay, now I can listen to a negative thing he has to say because I know that he loves me. When I was coaching you on improv, I was like, okay, this was great. I didn't do it as much as I should, but did good job here. These things were good, and I tried to do more compliments than I did criticism because you can't buy the criticism in the same way when you don't believe that it's coming from someone who has your good in mind.
Right, and it's not even a negative criticism. It's simply criticism where you're just
hey, do this a little different.
Yeah, just like a coach would do, and obviously we're talking about Facebook. You're not criticizing people on there, but at the same time, it's just when you want people to think differently than what they're doing. Because criticism usually is, in other words, even correction, because they're going one way, but you just kind of want to alter it a little bit. Just not even like, or just give them the option.
Yeah.
So that's a good thought though.
So I try to, like post some fun stuff, some happy stuff, some interesting stuff for every time I want to post like and even when I try to post like real stuff, I'll try to post things like Hans Rosling, this guy from Sweden, I think. He's a data scientist, and he does data on how, the world is actually better than you think it is.
Oh, that's good.
And so I'll try to post, instead of just posting, this is horrible. Well, there are horrible things, but also statistically, there are a lower percentage of things than at any point in all of humanity's existence.
Example, childbirth deaths.
Yeah. Childbirth deaths. Yeah. Child mortality rates were nuts.
Compared to, it was not an uncommon thing.
It was like 50-50.
Families, right? 9 kids, 12 kids.
Yeah.
And they should have had 15. Or they should, just.
Yeah.
And that was just kind of like, by
Hans
the book,
Rosling actually has an entire video on that. I posted that.
Okay. It was in one of the bar charts that you did, but that's just something that hits home. It's not really debatable. You don't need to know people are getting more people getting killed overseas, things like that. But it's just like a day-to-day reality.
On a day-to-day thing,
things are better.
You're not having 5 miscarriages.
It's seriously.
It's weird when someone has a miscarriage.
A town of 250,000 people.
Yeah.
Which a lot of cities are around. A minimum around the United States. Towns were smaller back then, but think about that. If it was still the same, that'd be a lot of deaths. And there's still a number of deaths, but we're talking about so far few.
Well, now it's like 2% child mortality rate versus. I'd have to look up the statistics again. I'm guessing on this, but versus 50% or whatever.
Just a lot more. So things are getting better.
Yeah,
it doesn't mean that the things
we have air conditioning and heat. We have 200 years ago. You maybe had like someone fan you. Or you had men julep up on your deck, and you listen. I listen to old books on CD. Like there's one called Captain Blood. It's about a pirate captain in the a guy who got tried to help someone, wound up going into slavery, and then wound up becoming a pirate captain. And
wow,
he was in in like Barbados or Jamaica or something. And just listening to him is like, you realize how much they were dying of heat. Like, it was a punishment to even run the plantations out there because it was just so freaking hot.
Where was this at?
Jamaica.
Okay. Dang.
And just those, though now we'd be like, yeah, we got to live there. We can have AC, and whenever it's cool, we can just go out. Like, it's just, we're living in a blessed time. Yeah.
The world has changed. I was just in Florida for a couple of weeks. November. If you're up north, it's usually cool and nice. They were setting records. The hottest it's been in 70 years.
Yeah.
And obviously there's been hundreds of other years, but I'm just saying, this is
we've only
Florida.
Had records for 120 years.
That's why I said 70 years. I was like, something like that. Who knows? But it's just the reality of thinking, it was tough to go outside, but people had been miserable, even at nights.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go outside, but I didn't have to. I had a great time.
We had air conditioning.
I had friends. We had movies. We had inside. We had our wedding inside where we're dancing. For 2 hours.
You can dance.
We can dance and not die.
Yeah.
Or, for 2 hours as opposed to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And we're in a 3-piece suit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, and we're in Florida at 70 degrees. So it's just, that's really neat.
Yeah. There's just so much good stuff. So we have to go, but final thought. You can say whatever you want. You can say
final thought.
1 minute to 10 minutes to 20 seconds.
For me is it's a lot of there's a new saying going on be yourself. And I really like that because it gives credence to what you go for. At the same time, don't just people be themselves with their first thought or their second thought because that's who they really think they are. But invest a little bit more time in who you think you are. Talk to people about how they view you. And then, there's something that you can actually invest into in who you are. And not just something simple. For example, I know a lot of people that really like video games.
Yeah.
And I say I'm not bashing video games, but I might kind of be bashing video games because of the hours that they put in it. And I don't know, what good that is on a large level. I'm also a social, much more extrovert. So I'm not, bashing it. But I'm thinking, for the next 30 years, do you want to be playing video games 4 hours a day? You might. Not a problem. It's okay. But I don't think it would help me. You probably won't hang out with me. I don't know. It's just a thought. It's actually probably not a final thought.
What you're kind of saying is care about which parts of yourself you're encouraging.
I think that's
to some
a good
degree.
point. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Yeah, because there's just that phrase that's thrown out there, be you.
Yeah.
It's some people don't even know who they are, but the very first thought that they they just continue to do what they're doing, even if it's not working.
Yeah, in comedy, you often want to ignore your first two thoughts. Like, be serious about them. Seriously investigate your first thought, your second thought, but go with your third thought. Whatever your third thought is probably not the same joke that everyone else made, and it's probably a better thing.
So it's probably more you, because it's more original.
Yeah, exactly. That's the you that, my dad always does terrible puns. The terrible pun is probably your first thought, and then the fart joke is your second thought. But the third thought is the thought that no one else has, and that's a little bit more unique and a little bit more you.
Yeah, something to chew on. That's actually a really good point. I like that. And it's not to, I like that.
All right. Well, I'm Zach Harris, Colorado Comedy Cast or Colorado Comedy Podcast, whatever I decide to call it. And I'm here with the wonderful, the lovely, the delightful, delightful, lovely, I did it correct, Mr. Aaron Owens.
Thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Hey, have a great day, man.
Good time.
Or however else we end a podcast. Our sponsor for today's podcast was... So basically we don't have a sponsor. It's our first podcast, and also no one cares. So what we did is, instead of getting like an official sponsor, decided to go the affiliate marketing route. So what you want to do is go to Amazon.com/AQ uppercase Y lowercase n 74 a pictograph for a beaver plus minus LOP capital O again. Okay, you know what? This podcast is brought to you by me, Zach Harris. Love me. Okay, bye.